In all of history and Christian literature, there are a myriad of ways that you could find yourself deep within the bowels of hell, where you would find your everlasting soul damned to eternal punishment. However, what people don't realize is that all these various sins that you could commit generally fall into one of 7 categories known as the 7 deadly sins. Now, these sins have been seen throughout the history of Christianity and Catholicism, but they are not mentioned specifically within the Bible itself. Yes, you can find passages that mention certain things that you should not do, and certain things that are more heinous in the eyes of God. Yet these things are not the 10 Commandments themselves, although those would most likely fall under one of these categories as well. Now, what we know as the 7 deadly sins actually began in the 4th century, written by a monk named Evagrius Ponticus, who gained some fame in his life for his studies and writings on theology. What he theorized, based upon his own study and thoughts, were that there were 8 evil thoughts which could lead a man towards eternal damnation. Eventually, these writings were taken by the Catholic Church and added to their teachings. It was in 590 AD that Pope Gregory I took this list and formalized it, changing it from evil thoughts to a list of 7 deadly sins that we currently know today. Many of the Christian-based religions that share much of the same teachings use the 7 deadly sins as a way to instruct mankind on how to curb its darker yearnings. The idea of the 7 deadly sins is featured prominently throughout history in Christian and Catholic imagery, with the most well-known being that of Dante Alighieri's depiction of hell in The Divine Comedy. This saw a layer of hell for each sin, with an eternal punishment that would, hypothetically, fit the worst sins that a person committed during their life. The order of the 7 deadly sins is also fairly standard, with the least heinous being generally listed as the first, and the worst being saved for last. So, number 1, lust. When most people think of the idea of lust, it's in its most basic form. Lust is seen as the sexual desire for someone and leads into several immoral acts, such as cheating or rape. This is understandable and in fact leads to one of the 10 Commandments: "Thou shalt not commit adultery." However, while lust has come to be defined as a term for sexual desire, it was originally used as a way to describe extreme desire for anything, lusting after money, power, alcohol, fancy cars, or even houses. It is this desire that is seen to turn a person away from the love of God and make them a slave to their own desires. Number 2. Gluttony. Another example that has been changed as time has moved on. When we define gluttony today, or if someone is being gluttonous, we see them as overeating. However, it was defined at one point as being overindulgence or overconsumption of something. The church sees this as a selfish act, especially when someone who overeats takes food away from the less fortunate or the needy. It is this excessive desire that would hurt your fellow man that leads you to hell. Number 3. Greed. In our studies, it seems that if we should commit the sin of lust, whether it be for worldly possessions or sexual desire, or one commits the sin of gluttony, one is also committing the sin of greed, which shows you what a slippery slope these 7 deadly sins truly are. The idea of greed is the desire for worldly possessions, for the bright and shiny that take all the precedence in their lives and are more important to them than the people around them. It is this idea that takes the hearts of the betterment of mankind and God that makes it a deadly sin. Number 4. Sloth. No, not that adorable slow creature that just likes to hang from trees. The definition of sloth is a reluctance to work or extreme laziness. Now, we've all been guilty of this at some point in our lives. However, what makes it a deadly sin is a little bit more extreme than just not wanting to throw out the trash every once in a while. The church puts sloth into 3 categories of their own. There is the laziness of the spirit, when one does not wish to take part in their commitments to the church and God. There is mental laziness, when one is unconcerned about the world around them, and it leads to simple boredom with life in general. And lastly, there is physical boredom, which we've all been guilty of at some point, where you are required to do a task and you simply don't want to, so you don't do it. Number 5, wrath. Wrath is not anger, but rather the act of physical violence that can lead from extreme anger. When one hurts someone out of hate or anger, this is considered wrath, and a person allowing their extreme feelings to control their actions. It is not a sin to be angry at someone, but rather a sin to allow that anger to control you. Number 6, envy. Envy is defined as resentful longing for or jealousy of another's possessions. This is a sin that also sees itself reflected in the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet. Another extreme sin that can see you desire someone's possessions so much that it causes you to take it from them or commit other heinous acts. Number 7, pride. This is considered the birth of all sins. It is considered the worst and is what leads one to commit all other sins in general. Pride is what the church believes is the number one thing that turns us away from the face of God, because pride doesn't allow us to be humble towards God. It should also be noted that before the list was actually changed into merely the 7 deadly sins, the original 8th evil thoughts was that of vainglory, which is boasting about oneself. So those are the 7 deadly sins that are believed to be what will eventually send you to eternal punishment. While most of these are considered a true sin if they are to the extreme, it does make you wonder. Thank you for watching this video today, and if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel and click that little bell to get those notifications about when we release new videos about myth, lore, and Tales of Earth. I will see you guys next time, right here.